Sandra, it's no wonder that nobody knew I wrote any poetry, because I actually didn't write any poetry worth keeping until about 1.5 years ago. I had written much poetry in my youth. And then I read what Benedetto Croce said about it. People who write poetry after they're 18 are either fools or madmen. And all of that poetry, I had a gift for the facile phrase, no question. But about 3 or 4 years ago when I was moving, I found a bunch of papers, and this was dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of pages of old poetry, and that's all went in the trash. And about 1.5 years ago, I was asked, I believe I was asked, to write a poem for the memory book of my high school class reunion. I didn't attend, but I did write a poem, and it did go in the memory book. And I think it's in here, but I don't know if I'll read it. And I wrote a second one, and then in the meantime I wrote a couple of others, and I decided to go to the reunion that was held about 1 year ago. And as I got here before the reunion, I got here before hardly anybody else got here, and I stayed at the Cockroach Motel out on Lido Key. That's very unkind, because it's actually a nice motel. It just looks like it should have cockroaches. And the Monday night that I arrived, there was the most marvelous sunset that I'd ever seen here. And I have a picture of it. It's somewhere on the internet. You can find it. And I wrote this poem. I woke up about 2 or 3 in the morning with the first line clear in my head. And all these poems that I've written recently have been sonnets. Petrarchian sonnet, not the Shakespearean one, most of them. And then I just kept writing. And this is how it turned out. This is called New College Sunset, 28 October 2014. Sunset over the Gulf of Mexico, horizon line drawn sharp, clean, perfect. Black as India ink off a fine point. A tangerine glow under transparent blue, merging up to deep dark indigo. Intense, cradling the silver moon's crescent like a silk blanket reflecting a smile. It held you there in awe the whole long while, hoping that the gods never closed the joint. But it will come again, just not the style of it. The one brief transcendent moment really too precious for words. An aspect of time rose above clashing slate gray waves, mirroring the light, sadness, beauty saves. Sandra was instrumental in having this poem written and given to the New College Committee, the reunion committee, and so they asked me to read it at the as part of the memorial service, which I did. And then I kept writing poems, and over that year, over about 1 year, until this last summer, I think the last one I wrote was in May or June, I kept writing sonnets. Every time I get a thought, write a sonnet. The first line would come in my head, write a sonnet. So, and most of them were written in about an hour or two. Some of them took days and days and days to get right. But they just came out so easy. And it was sort of a surprise. It was a surprise in the way that this book is a surprise. Because it just came out so easy. And like a miracle. So I'll read a few more poems. I'm going to read a couple of poems from Eric Hazelhoff, who was a member of the charter class. He died in 2010 in Holland after living for many years in Hawaii. And he's an interesting poet. And there's a lot of line drawings in here. I mean, some of them you would have to have known Eric in order to get them, like this one. It's a very short poem. It's called Chop Top 1949 Limousine. Eric owned a Cadillac. It was not a convertible because it didn't have a top. It was a parade car. It was a Cadillac parade car. It was black, and he still had it when he went to school in Vermont at Goddard, and I visited him there. We actually drove in that car to the airport to take a flight down to Baltimore. Here it is, if you can picture all that. Chop Top 1949 Limousine. I had a Cadillac. It was big and it was black. It didn't go fast, but it was large. This is, that was it. This is Life and Death. This is a little more serious. Eric's not a great poet, but he has a wonderful way with sentiments. And this is called Life and Death. Sliding past midnight, looking for the silverfish dawn. On dry land, the ocean still surrounds me. The depth, the mystery, the rich full water. Gray-eyed Athena upon the wine-dark sea, Neptune and Triton and all the gods beneath the waves, all the dead sailors in their shifting graves. Beneath that soft, flat sea, some world of freedom laughs and laughs. Shooting starfish spin through the bottomless night. Jellyfish float into transparency. We are all lost. We are all found. We are the ether of creation, the wet, the slime, the ooze of life and death. That's Eric Hazelon, one of the world's really nice guys. Now, I don't know what I'm going to read out of here, but I'll figure it out soon. A lot of these are nature poems, and they're nature poems of the nature where I grew up, which is the Oregon Desert. I grew up on the edge of the Great Basin, and if you go east from my hometown, which had 2,500 people in it, and the nearest town is 50 miles away, from there to the Idaho border and south into Nevada and a little bit north, in an area the size of New York State, there are not even 1,000 people. This is great, big, craggy, desolate, wild country with a population density way less than the Gobi Desert. And so there's if you could walk outside of my hometown and be essentially in wilderness. You wouldn't see anybody all day long. And friends of mine and I rode bicycles everywhere. We would drive 10 miles out, we would ride 10 miles out and 10 miles back. It was nothing. And you have to, it's hard to picture that for people who have grown up in all this greenery. But anyway, this is called On Top of the Plateau. The willow brakes huddle over the creek bed like friars hoeing a very long row of narrow furrows, dipping down the swale and spilling seed into the deep defile. Light hits the mist rising up from below, shifting wild like a spectral volcano. Too small and tender for the plateau scale. Or up on top you can see 100 if the brush opens up enough to see 1 mile. The hot spring up the heights has a sand floor and rock walls, hawks above. The mind goes blank where tall weeds the air goes light as down, and up the sky in feathers near the shore, through dizzy whirling in the sleeping bank has cashiers made of stone. No need to drown in pennies when the circus is in town. That's a real place, actually. Heart Mountain, where there is a hot springs up on top, and it has the same floor. Speak up. I'm dropping my voice too much. Okay. This is called Nothing New for Odd Men. The time has come for all odd men to live as though it mattered somehow. Nothing new, a few trinkets, a sigh. You want me to look at you? More what? Volume?
Speak up.
You know, I'm speaking very loud. There must be something wrong with my microphone.
Well, yeah, but go ahead.
I
You
don't
gotta
think that
turn it off.
microphone amplifies. I think it's for recording.
It is.
So we need to speak to the room. You don't get an echo for the
Is what they're saying true?
Not anymore.
We can hear you better.
Because I'm speaking this way and not this way?
No, they
No,
can't.
something changed acoustically.
Something got fixed.
Yeah, my microphone was off,
Right.
which I didn't know.
Neither did we.
No, and it had been on, so I don't know how it happened. The time has come for all odd men to live as though it mattered somehow. Nothing new, a few trinkets, a sigh, a scattered sound like quail on leafy ground. The sky so blue it hurts your heart to witness the beyond. The times the air is clean, the trees as green as thought could image. Time a silver sieve, collecting all the precious stones to grind in facets. Weigh the light and keep the sheen at hand, an opaline redemption wound around the sliding scale. A golden wand needs waving, knocking down the dark behind and pointing up. A walk along a road is faster when you loose the dragging load. Well, this is a little lighter weight. This was inspired by Don Aronoff, who on his last birthday had posted something on one of the New College sites that he'd had a birthday and he was now officially an old fart. So this is called Old Farts. Old farts is as old farts does, so they say in the hills where all the old farts cavort up and down the slopes. If an old fart wants to jump a fence, he does it. That's the sort of thing an old fart does. And if he haunts the couch, he does not mean to take the weight off his bones, but to see the furniture stay in practice. An old fart has a way of getting up slow to preserve the floor from wear and tear. And a soft, easy gait to keep his shoes in good form. He affects a limp to please the doctors and directs his wife to keep his cholesterol down. A favor, so she will give up the frown. I had another one here I was going to read. Let's see if I can. No matter.
Hey, Jim, will you talk about the sonnet as a form for a minute?
The sonnet as a form, you mean why I was right, why I wrote
What
it?
is the sonnet? What is it?
Oh, the sonnet. The sonnet is a poem of 14 lines. There's a couple of main types. The Elizabethan sonnet has 3 quartets and then a couplet. And that rhyme scheme is generally A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, F, F, E, F, E, F, and then G, G. The Petrarchian sonnet is also 14 lines, but it's in a set of 8, an octet, and then a sestet, 8 lines and 6 lines. And the Petrarchian classic sonnet has a particular rhyme scheme that I can't quite remember. But this form of the sonnet, the 8 lines present the problem, and the 6 lines present the solution, or the 8 lines represent a question, and the 6 lines represent the answer, things of that form. So that's how all these are. I don't know why I started writing sonnets. It just became a thing, and then I kept it up. So, none of my early poems were sonnets. They were all free form, and I had some very long ones. I used to have something I called my ubiquitous bag, which was a briefcase that I carried with me, and it had the poems, all the poems I was writing. And one of them was a road poem that I don't know how long it was. It was pages and pages and pages, because I spent 2 or 3 years traveling around the United States, sometimes hitchhiking, sometimes not. And if I still had that one, I might have kept it, but that one just got lost somewhere, and along with the ubiquitous bag. But I'll read this one and then stop. This is one that Kathleen Dively commented on when she first saw it, that she knew what that meant. This is called "The People in Me Breathe." The people in me breathe with lungs of steel. These people will not go, depart, be gone. They make me angry, all these hangers-on pretending like they live here. All they do is pay the rent and sleep and take up space like puppets waiting for the strings to move. I should have killed them long ago to prove a point, but there is no point, now nor then, nor any other time. The muses peel them all off one by one in any case, and hand out pills and drinks and tell them when to take a hike. They all return to screw things up if they can. They pretend they can, but all they do is scheme and plot and plan. The people in me breathe. David Rollo is coming up. David Rollo was one of the first people I met and actually talked to when I first got to New College, along those thousands of years ago. And I recognized David, of all the people that were there, and there were some that were highly celebrated and we were supposed to think were nifty by the people who had started the college up, but David I recognized as the most sophisticated thinker among the lot. And somebody you could talk about with any subject and he would have something to say. And David is still that way. And he has some particular knowledge, which is very rare, such as knowing what all the ancient Greeks' poetic devices were and were called. And although you don't need to know those things in order to write or to write about poetry, but because all Western poetry originated with the Greeks, the devices that they used are still with us to this very day. And it's just good to know stuff like that. And David was one of the people with whom I could share my poetry and we could talk about it. And he showed me some of his. So anyway, I'm going to invite David Rollo up to speak. Thanks a lot.